Welcome back to the 8 Cube Circus. This is episode number 12, and we've got the old gang back together. As always, I will be your host, Smlz. We have also got Denish here today.
Woo! Thank you. Thank you, 12-time guest Smlz.
And we also have back after a brief hiatus, Xenaid. Xenaid, how are you doing?
We're doing good. School year started, but it's not meta. I mean, we're gonna get there.
Yeah, so we are recording this a few hours, so we were able to process the impact of this apocalyptic OTA. You can see on the thumbnail right now, they killed the tech. Tech cards are gone, and we are going to break down all of the changes one by one here. First up, the poster child of tech in Marvel Snap. After countless and countless cries for a nerf from players all across the world, has finally gotten hit. Shang-Chi 4-2 with destroy an enemy card. Not all, an enemy card here with 10 or more power. Xenaid, you're a Sauron player. Walk us through this change.
Yeah. So basically, it's so much easier to play around Shang-Chi now because it's basically like saying a 4-12, right? If he's a 4-2 deletes 10 power from your side of the lane, now you can add power to play around Shang-Chi a lot more easily in these big guy decks. So, like, if you're playing Sauron and you have like a 3-10, normally you wouldn't be able to add it to a lane to protect yourself against Shang-Chi. You'd have to find like smaller things like Lizard, like Ebony Maw. Like, that's used to be the way that Sauron countered Shang, is by going just under the 10 power threshold. Now you can just play more cards on that lane and make sure you have enough power if one of those guys are destroyed, which I think is really cool. Um, Obviously the card's pretty dead, no? Like, I think it's really hard to play around this
I
change.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't even know if the play rate's gonna change too much because I think people are just Shang brand. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. You can play as much Shang-Chi as you want. Because in pretty much every matchup, this does not change anything. The only matchups where Shang really cared about hitting multiple cards was like really stupid Cerebro players who are playing C4 with two Cerebros, then it matters, or like Surtur. Those are pretty much the only two. Hella 2, obviously, but not really anymore. There's a lot of 8 and 7 power cards that kind of duck it. Usually, I'm only personally running like 2 cards that get shanked. And so if they're in the same lane, it's kind of like. I actually don't know if this is a bit. I think the fact that he's losing a point is a bigger deal for 90% of Marvel Snap players than the fact that he can only destroy one card now.
Yeah, so I think the Shang Brain stuff is still going to be prevalent. By the way, if you're listening, you don't know, this is a temporary OTA. This is in a sense, an imbalance patch for 2 weeks. All pretty much every single tech card in the game is going to be significantly nerfed. In most cases, we'll get to a few later that might not be significantly nerfed, but yeah, this guy will probably almost certainly get reverted after the 2 weeks, but during those 2 weeks, I think we'll maybe see like 5% less Shang. All the players that aren't like always playing Shang in every single one of their decks aren't playing Shang because Shang is like pretty bad into a heavy ongoing meta. Uh this guy losing a point, I agree with Denish, is more impactful because when you're playing Shang, you're often only hitting one thing in the lane, not hitting multiple things. I guess the biggest interaction change with this is probably like Gamma Lab, where like it's no longer an instant win. So I definitely think that this nerf will be felt, but I think it is, as far as the nerfs go, out of the ones that I can confidently say are like significant nerfs, this is probably the lightest one they went with.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. This definitely makes Shang a lot less scary locations wise. Because even like Nidavellir, which is +5 to cards, he doesn't just clear the lane anymore. There's a whole bunch of like those things where Shang isn't as scary. And I mean, yeah, once again, I don't think it's that big of a deal for him to do this. It's definitely a nerf. I don't think it's warranted personally, but I know a lot of people do. And I really like the fact that the devs are just saying, okay, you want Shang to be nerfed? You don't want to play against Enchantress? We'll nerf him, see what happens. And giving the assurance to the people that are like know what's about to happen to the meta that don't worry, we'll probably just put it back. We just want to show why we need these things.
Yeah, but like I think for Shang, like usually he's hitting like one big thing, so like yeah, like people won't see that impacts a lot. It's just people who will abuse it. Like it's just way easier to counterplay against Shang-Chi. I think it's a lot. It's a lot harder to play the card, and your opponent can't do anything about it this time.
Yeah, so let's move on from Shang unless any you have any last minute things to add.
No,
Nope.
good.
All right, let's move on to what I think is a nerf, but a lot less of a nerf than it may seem at first. Enchantress going from a 4-6 to a 5-8. This is now like straight up. This is now probably Denish can either back me up or debate me on this. I think this is best in slot and hella now. 5-8 tech card. 5-8's a good stat line in this game, and having that on a tech card is pretty good. So I definitely think this is a nerf in general, but specifically in like ramp decks that can afford the tech like hella, or maybe like you can do electro into enchantress now, like all that stuff. I think for ramp decks, this is actually a buff.
Yeah, I actually do think this is a buff for ramp decks, and I think a lot of these are actually buffed in ramp decks. Even like a Negasonic, for example. It won't be traditional ramp where you play the 3 cost and then you do all that. It's probably going to be lower surge stuff. I'm very interested in trying to build it for sure. But yeah, absolutely. I think Enchantress does not go in Agatha because I don't really think Agatha is gonna know what to do with her. But in the I have a build coming up. We'll show it later into the podcast on the screen, and we'll go over what the cards are. But the deck I ran in Golden Gauntlet was already running 4 cost Enchantress, and the curve actually does not change, making her a 5 cost. And so this is just a +2 buff in Hela, which is funny because this keeps happening, where they'll buff or nerf cards, and then they'll just immediately the opposite effect will happen in Hela. With like Infinity Ultron, this happened. With there's probably another example. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But yeah, all these cards are just getting abilities or stat changes that yeah 5 cost is bad, but like it already fits the curve I'm running. Like I wasn't playing it on a turn where I didn't have an extra energy. Like it just gave it 2 points in the deck. Overall, I do think it's a nerf. I think it's less so a nerf than the rest of them for sure. I think it's almost a we're changing the role she plays. Whereas before she would be end of game tech, which gets really good cube value. Now you almost want to play her on 5, and she's playing for a good 5/8 stat stick. Or even if you play it on the last turn with like I don't know some big 1 drop, even if it's just like a 1/4, 1/5, 1/7, just that 8 power body swinging these larger ongoing cards, swinging the lanes so much harder. I actually think the 2 points is very, very impactful. Zen, do you want to touch on Enchantress? I know you run it in.
Yeah, I like Ench a lot. This 5-8 Ench. But I think the value will just come from people not playing Cosmo as much in the ongoing decks. And especially like Ench herself as a 4-6 still wasn't big enough to win lanes that mattered, like Big Hand Demons or like Moonstone lanes, because Moonstone was also a 4-6. And so like Ench itself wasn't providing enough power, and it was like you have to play the card +1 anyway. So I think 5-8 Ench like will probably do Ench's job better as a tech card. Because it's really just like shut down one big lane ongoing thing, right? Most ongoing decks are already giving up a lane, and Ench just needs to be big enough to shut down the lane that they're not giving up. So I think it's a it's not that big of a nerf at all.
Yeah, so funnily enough, Dennis, I have been playing a little bit of Agatha Hella today with Enchantress, and still think it is like really good in that slot. Like I've tried the Iron Man, I've tried the CGR, I've tried the Enchantress. The Enchantress feels like really good, like at least better than CGR. Probably, I think it's close to Iron Man as well. But here's a question I'd like to pitch to you guys. Let's assume Enchantress stays at a 5 cost. What would the power number on this card need to be for this to be considered a buff? Is it 5'9, 5'10?
I mean, it's
Oh.
already a buff for Nightmare decks. Like that was the other thing. Like fives are the best thing to hit with Nightmare, and entrance like your game plan. And if you don't hit Sauron, so like having a 5/8 that can be like an Iron Man or a Blue Marvel or like something like that's actually pretty insane. 5/8's like the 5 drops are really actually low in power, right? The only 5/10 is Agamotto, and then like Arrow got nerfed from 5/10 to 5/9, and the only thing above the 10 slot is Red Skull, right? Am I missing anything, guys?
No, I
Nope.
think that's
There's
it.
not
Red
that
Skull
much
is the only
flexibility.
card above 5'10.
There's not that much flexibility in the 5 cost power like power output. And
So
5/8
you think this is a
huge
buff
side.
now?
Honestly, like it's a nerf to the Sarah like style decks that want to play.
We're not talking about
Enchantress.
the cert. We're talking about the card. Do you think 5'8 Enchantress is better than 4'6 Enchantress?
I think it's better than 4/6 Enchantress.
Wow, so you're saying that 8 is
I
enough.
I think it's a side grade. That's my
I
take.
think
I
it's
think
a
it's the side
slight
grade.
I think it's a slight nerf. I think at 5'9 this is a buff.
I think with like Zabu's state, right? Like I think 4/6 Enchantress that could be played as a 3/6 a lot of the time. This would be significantly worse then. But because of the Zabu nerf and everything, like 4/6 Enchantress wasn't being played as a 3/6 very often. So going from 4/6 to 5/8, like if you can find the good 1 drops to play with it's like not that noticeable of a difference, and the power increase actually matters, I think.
Yeah, I think this is a slight nerf. I think it's a role change. And I'd be interested to see if they want, like, if they would say after this imbalance patch, like, hey, maybe we actually like Enchantress at the 5 line. We're gonna make her a 5'9, so she's like more in line because the effect can be a positive and a negative. And then we're gonna take like Cosmic Ghost Rider down to a 4-5 or a 4-6, and we're gonna see if we swap these two cards roles, if the tech metagame is healthier. I'm not quite sure, but I think this card hit something that I'm not sure they expected, in the sense that this is just a big stat stick tech card, and it kind of does its job at the 5 line. I'm very interested in this card. I think 5'9 is where this would be if you wanted to keep it as a 5 drop. But in general, I kind of like this change. And we're going to explore a little bit more of cards that, like, their numbers might not be right, but we kind of like the change in, like, the direction that they went with this nerf. Because they're obviously all like a joke. This is obviously the imbalance patch where they're nerfing all the tech cards. But I think some of these, they put some thought into this, in like, this is maybe in a sense a peek behind the dev's curtain to see what roles they think the tech cards fulfill. Anybody
Yeah,
else want to touch
absolutely.
on Enchantress?
For Enchantress, I want to open up a little bit about what I'm planning on doing with like ramp stuff. I will not be touching ramp tech because it runs Stardust and I don't want to bring that into the world. But if you think about it, if you run Surge plus a 3 cost ramper, so that would be like a Luna, even an Electro possibly, because you're running Enchantress anyways. Because yeah, she fills the Electro ramp where you're playing an 8 power card on turn 4, which is above right, and also it can be used in a separate way, similar to like the Cersei, where it can also get value in the deck otherwise. But if you run a Surge and a 3 cost scaler, you get this hit down to a 4/8, and then you have 1 extra energy, you could still play it with a 3 cost on the last turn. It's a little bit harder, and you'd have to basically commit more early game to it than you usually would. But I mean, it's also 8 power now. And so if you're playing a 4/8 Enchantress with, I don't know, 3/3, what's a good 3 cost right now? I guess there aren't very many, but
Four
eventually it's
nine with the
very
star brand.
Gambit's pretty good for threes. You can get something like a Star Brand if you want to make it a Sauron rampless.
yeah. Yeah, 4-9 even because it's surged with Starbrand. Like that feels good. I think that this in a ramp deck feels exceptional. I really do. And so I think it's a side grade currently. For the card, I still think it's a side grade because Enchantress wasn't really peak. It was more so like, okay, tech decks run it, but tech decks kind of run it obligatorily. Or it's like, oh, of course they do, it's a tech card. And other than that, the only like nothing really ran it. It was just kind of sprinkled when Tribunal got a little too big, or when I don't know, like Normie ongoing got a little too big. Obviously, it's running Sauron, it's running Hela, but like those are the decks that I'm saying it's buffed in. So yeah, overall, I think this is pretty good for the card. Smz, what do you want to say about it?
Yeah, I think that point mentioning Tribunal get a little bit too big. We're gonna be talking about that a little bit later when it comes to nerfing Enchantress. But yeah, do you guys have any other thoughts on Enchantress before we move on?
The ramp curve, if you actually value getting priority, like leader Alliance type bullshit, you can go like Lizard on 2, Electro on 3, ramp Enchantress. That's a lot of points. That's
Hmm.
like 18 like points in 3 turns while also getting like extra energy.
We will
Yeah,
touch
you
on
do also
Alliance
get to
later as well.
Uh-huh.
you do
So,
also get to turn off the lizard with the Enchantress,
yeah,
which
so
is
I'm saying like if
interesting.
you care about the priority game, Ench Lizard or Lizard Electro Ench in is like a good power curve. It's a lot of
Yeah,
power for 3 turns.
Mm,
it makes me want to see what makes me want to see what 5-9 War Machine looks like because I think War Machine fits in that deck as well potentially with Ebony Maw.
Yeah, we talked about that in our 5 cost episode. If War Machine was a five
Yep.
cost, but I think other people have opinions about that.
yeah. All right. On to the next card. It's Killmonger. Killmonger goes from a global effect to a local effect. So he now only destroys the one cost cards at his location. And I'm going to be honest, this is a butchering of the card. This is now, I think, just like worse Electra. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's bad because they ruined him in regular destroy. That's the only issue I have with this change. I actually like the concept of making Killmonger not hit the entire board. I don't love it when tech cards can do this kind of thing where it's just like, oh, everything's gone. I didn't have to aim it. I didn't have to time it. It's just all gone. I don't love that. Obviously, they have Kyera to protect themselves, so it's not like this isn't the worst implementation of the concept. I'd say Mobius is a lot worse. Stardust, Luke Cage, those cards. But yeah, for sure. Um, Regarding worse Electra, I don't know. It's still like it forces the opponent to respect it, and they need to now play. I don't know. I'm going to use demons for example in a very specific way. Like you can't stack your demons. But other than that, I mean, yeah, it's not. This is not a good change.
I mean, like, you wanted to destroy your own 1 cost a lot of times when you were playing this card, like in destroy decks. So destroys and Firehair decks are like getting a really big nerf, I think, because you didn't really have to think about where you played your 1 drops and you just Killmonger, and then like Morgan decks would get it back. So I think that's a big thing. But also, like, I'm surprised they didn't give it a stat buff or anything because like now it's usually a net negative for yourself if you like decide to play 1 drops in your lane. And I just don't see a world where like playing him has significant value anymore. But yeah, Denish.
Yeah, touching on what he actually can do now, that's kind of interesting. In these fire hair decks that run like Hood, that's pretty much the only implication. You can actually play the demons out earlier on curve so that it lets you Killmonger your Hood. And so I actually think he might genuinely see play in a deck or two that he didn't before, or even like where he was already. I don't think this is a completely dead card. I can see uses where this is actually good, such as even like not Zoo, but decks that want to run, I don't know, Spider Ham. You can now actually run a Killmonger. I mean, if this was a long-term change, he would actually see play occasionally, and I do actually think that. But yeah, no, I don't think. I think he was. remotely fine the way he was. I don't think this was necessary. But it is interesting to experiment with, which was the entire point of the update.
I think it's a little bit interesting design space making this guy local. However, if you're gonna make it local, I'd probably make this guy like a 2-3 or something like that. Or if you wanted to keep him at the 3 line, make him a 3-5 or a 3-4, just because this text box is so much weaker. But in general, I think it is an interesting design space to experiment with. This is one of the only global like tech cards that is not ongoing. I think it might be the only global non-ongoing tech card, but it is. I'm not happy with the change. I am a Killmonger fan. I like Killmonger as a tech card. I think he has some really good use when you're playing him like sneakily and not like in the Fenris Wolf stuff. Just pulling off a random Killmonger is amazing cube equity against something like a V hand. But yeah, I definitely think they went like a little bit too harsh on this one. But I mean, that's kind of the fun of the patch. It's an imbalance patch. The robots hate the tech cards, so they nerfed all the tech cards. And yeah, is there anything else you guys want to touch on about Killmonger?
What are you doing with Morgan for Killmongers then? Are you just still gonna run it? What do you think?
I think you still want like the sweet spot of 3 destroy cards, but it's like tough because Killmonger is really good, and I think we didn't talk about it at destroying clog stuff. Like Killmonger is a lot worse into clog now.
Yeah, I do think that is a something he was blocking. That is a big deal. Having the
Yeah.
clog matchup be broken up so much more, it almost makes me think people are gonna. It just values Stardust so much more than we already did, because that's just
In
another
Merlin
matchup
too.
that yeah. What was that?
Merlin's the one that's going to see a massive uptick in play if Clog becomes popular.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Just
Yeah,
like
Merlin is
Merlin,
also.
Werewolf by Night stuff, which we'll talk about one of the big counters to Werewolf getting nerfed.
I think
So
Merlin like is actually just currently underplayed right now. Like I'm up around like 100 cubes, 400 SP, playing Merlin Sauron, like no werewolf even, and he just does the thing very well.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
can
mean,
see
if you're
that.
not dealing with hand space issues, then Merlin's a phenomenal card.
I mean, I'm playing him and Kate Bishop. Like sometimes there's like awkward interactions, but he doesn't feel bad to play at all. Like Merlin's one of the best cards in the game. He's just severely underplayed right now.
I would tend to agree with you. Any other things we want to touch on about Killmonger? Alrighty, let's move on to the next card. The robots hate dogs. Cosmo from a 3-3 to a 4-6 plus 3 points, but plus one cost. Does this do anything? We'll start with Xenaid.
This does a lot. Like predictive Cosmos on turn 3. Like usually for one turn 1 to 2 in the decks that like want to play proactive Cosmo, they're juggling for priority a lot of the time. Also, like in decks like move bounce and all that stuff, like this stops protecting from Red Guardian, I guess, which we mentioned later. Like I still plan on running Red Guardian, but like I guess without as much tech, maybe Cosmo is just not as required as a proactive tool like to protect your things as much because like if people aren't running Shang Enchantress, then you don't need to protect your big cards. So I don't know what the niche for Cosmo is gonna turn into, or like just denying Hela or denying Wong decks. But I guess we'll have to see what Denish thinks.
It's a Cerebro 6 card. I do think the removing him from Cerebro 3 actually is just going to kill Cerebro 3. That's my take. I don't think Cerebro without Cosmo is going to be very good. It just dies to so many things, not even just Enchantress, which is still remotely playable. But yeah, overall, Cosmo, I mean, I think he still goes in ongoing decks. Doubling his power is a really big deal for sure. Going from 3 to 4, but 3 to 6 power is the lanes that he's in. He's gonna have a lot more of an impact. I could see it still seeing play, and I do like it's a Zabu card now. And I mean, 3/6 Cosmo, that's silly. Or even if you surge it, it's 3/7, and then you play it on curve, and it's like okay, so that's just a 4 power buff, or even like 3 power. I can see I can see a universe where Cosmos still sees play, but let's hear what Smith has to say.
I am so thankful that Cerebro 3 is going to die without this card. I hate Cerebro 3 so much. You can actually I'm really just posted this screenshot everywhere because I think it's hilarious. But I was playing Hell Agatha earlier and Redshift gave me an Arnim Zola and Hella revived an Enchantress in an empty lane on turn 5 and the Cerebral player began emoting me because my Enchantress missed. And then I Zola'd the Enchantress and killed 3 Cerebros. That was definitely the highlight of my Snap Day today. So I had a lot of fun with that, and Cosmo would have stopped it. So my thesis with this card, though, is that this is not bad. 4/6 is a legit stat line for an effect this powerful. You're effectively turning this from a significantly off curve effect at 3, where it's a 3/3 that's bad stats, into a slightly off curve 4/6 is okay stats, but you're making it cost 4, which is significantly worse. And the curve has a lot of the important on reveals, stuff like Corvus Glaive, all that stuff costs 3. So I really think that Cosmo is still going to see play. I think he'll see less generic play, but I think like Zabu decks and stuff like that, like if anything, this is kind of a new tech slot card.
Yeah, it might be a new tech slop card, but I guess like, what are you really trying to hit with Cosmo now that tech's gone? Because a lot of the time, like, you want to run Cosmo to protect yourself from the tech, right? Like, you want to protect yourself from the Shang-Chi's, from the Enchantresses that are coming down. But now that Cosmo's like, now that like, if the meta kind of devolves into tech disappearing, what is Cosmo actually meant to be used for? Do you guys think? Because like it's harder to predict if Cosmo when he's being a 4 cost. Like if you're dropping out on turn 6, like you have to have things in mind that you're gonna block, right? So like I don't think of anything that I'm like trying to hit with Cosmo. Like, and if you're running in your deck to like hit Hella on turn 6 or whatever, like it feels very unreliable, right? Because he's always a 1 in 3. Like except for specifically Wong, I don't know why I would ever run Cosmo.
Yeah, even for Hella specifically, like you could just run the 4/7. I don't think anyone should run the 4/7 because you're incredibly cringe if you do. But yeah, I mean like come on. Stardust is just better Cosmo at dealing with Hella. Other than that, I mean it still hits the tech cards. So like Tribunal for example, okay, Tribunal it might actually have a home. It's awkward because it hits your mistakes. It's awkward because it hits your blink, but I don't think Tribunal is going to go for blink anymore, especially now that there's probably going to be quite a bit of Stardust. I think you're just better off running. I think Cosmo fits in Tribunal, and that's the only deck I can actually see it still in, other than Cerebro 6.
Yeah, I actually don't think Cosmo still fits in Tribunal. I don't think Cosmo fit in Tribunal to begin with. Tribunal lately has been a I am just going to go taller than you. If you tech me, tech me. It's a lot harder to do it than it was before. With Nerf Juggernaut, all that stuff. A lot of the like acceptable tribunal counters because Enchantress saw like play fell off a cliff. Um, a lot of the traditional tribunal counters have been getting slowly nerfed and nerfed and nerfed until a lot of decks aren't running that interaction anymore. So Tribunal is more able to get its combo off, and the interaction that is being run, stuff like Mobius and Stardust. Stardust has not been fully worked around. I don't think it can because Tribunal really wants to be a Jubilee deck, but I think that the Mobius issue has been worked out. A lot of the top Tribunal players, I know Hella Enjoyer is. I know I've been working. I've been putting some hours into it. There is a Wiccan Ancient One Tribunal list, which sees you wanting to Tau Mandala and Iron Man, and that is your power lane. You can typically get 100 plus with it. And there really isn't any place for Cosmo in that deck. The flex slot in that deck is a 3 cost flex slot. We'll get to that later because I'm going to be talking about it. But I don't know where this guy has a home. But I have one more question for you guys about Cosmo specifically. What's a bigger nerf, Shang or Cosmo? We'll start with Denish.
Oh, that's interesting. Before I answer the question, there's another thing we can Cosmo the Tribunal players. Now you guys lose to Cosmo. Because yeah, the Mandala thing is really good, but also it does die to Cosmo. Like that's legit,
You
especially with
could,
6 power.
you could Tribunal a
Yeah.
Cosmo player. You could Cosmo a Tribunal player.
As far as what's a bigger nerf, I think probably this. Just because Shang, the only things I think for the cards, this is a bigger nerf. This is a bigger Cosmo nerf than the Shang change, which is insane because it got 3 points of power. But also you're with Shang, like the issue with the Shang change isn't Shang himself. Like his implication is very rarely different. It's only different into like 3 matchups. The reason I think the change is so significant is because those 3 matchups are going to be everywhere. There's going to be a lot of Surtur. There's going to be a good amount of Sauron, and if there's not any Stardust, there's going to be a good amount of Hela. And so I think overall, I'd probably say the Cosmo change is more of a nerf.
Yeah, I think just the Cosmo interactions that are happening on turn 3 like used to matter a lot more. I think you can't even like Cosmo the Hood lane reliably now, right? Because you could Cosmo the Hood lane, they're stuck with that -1, especially if they're playing like Merlin Misery. But now they have a chance to Misery it before you can Cosmo. So Cosmo is a lot bigger unless you're playing like 3 10 power cards into one lane, which I don't know who would ever commit that much, but those players must be jumping for joy right now.
All right, Zen, hear me out. What if we play Quicksilver on 1 and then Psylocke on 2 in a Prio Scam deck? What do you think?
Yeah, the problem is running Quicksilver on 1 and not Domino on 2. Like 2/4 Domino is great. 2/2 Psylocke, I'd rather die, man.
Yeah, but then you get to play this epic Cosmo. That's a
Yeah, you
3.
get to play it on
Yeah, you
three.
know what'd be better?
You get to
Wicked.
play it on 3.
All right. On to the next card that got on the butcher block. It's Negasonic, and this is a very interesting change. It got the Juggernaut treatment. 3/3 to 4/5. I'm gonna start with Xenaid. Is this a nerf?
I think it's the nerf, but with the context of Fenris changes, the curve for Fenris decks suddenly becomes realized again, which is Mercury on 2, Fenris on 3, Negasonic on 4. And that's actually a buff because if you did Mercury on 2, Fenris on 3, Negasonic on 4 before, you were just 2 power down, right? So now it actually feels a lot better to do that curve. The problem is, like, I don't know if you'll get Prio, considering the best 2 drop is back as Iron Patriot, right? So if you're doing all that to not get Prio, it feels harder because a 3 drop's a lot easier to squeeze a 3+3 than it is a 4+2, especially when you have Prios. So I'm not necessarily sure like how you want to build this deck, but I do think someone will realize a Merc Fenris Cannonball Negasonic curve. That won't be me, but it'll be someone.
Yeah, this absolutely. I do think the Fenris has big implications. I also think it fits in ramp really well. Being able to play a 4 and a 3 on the last turn is big. I know there's not that many 3s anymore because like Jug is gone, Negasonic's gone, Cosmo's gone. So you probably just go with like a Gladiator even or like a Starbrand or something like that. But being able to Negasonic 1 lane or Jug 1 lane, that's the big deal though. Having Jug as competition, Negasonic was kind of flourishing a little bit because it didn't have to deal with Juggernaut taking its slot in every deck. Now it's back at the same stat line as Juggernaut. I think it's good. I think it's a fine card, even at 4/5. I think this is a good card, which is, I mean, that says something about 3/3 Negasonic, I think. But also, like, you could just run Jug. I think Jug is better at what this is doing, other than the Fenris synergy, at least. Yeah. But yeah, the ramp curve wise, I don't hate it.
I think this is a very interesting change. I'm gonna start off by saying I don't. I think this was the least hit of all the tech cards. This is like still like completely good, but I think in some context this is a buff, some it's a nerf. It's a buff in Fenris. Definitely, if you want to run that old Merc Ball package, this is probably a Merc Ball buff. Second, Negasonic cares a lot about the power in the lane she's in because she's looking to close down a lane. Negasonic is very good at 5 power as compared to 3. It's +2 in the lane. It's 2 more points your opponent needs to get past when you're destroying one of the cards they're investing in the lane. All of that is good. 4 cost makes you a little more inflexible, but I think what Denish brought up, the direct competition with Juggernaut is what makes this a nerf instead of a buff. I think if Juggernaut was not like in the game, like if we didn't have a Juggernaut and this card went from 3/3 to 4/5, I think you could honestly call this a buff based on the fact that there's a ton of outer context, like the Fenris context, and the Negasonics points matter more than the normal cards points and snap. I think you could reasonably say that this is a buff. However, in the context where Juggernaut is at the same stat line, I think this is a nerf based on it having competition with Juggernaut. So I think that the card though is still like 95% as good as it was at 3/3. I still will play this card in a ramp deck probably. This card, one of the cards I'm most excited to experiment with, and I still think it's very, very good.
Yeah, one of the synergies I'm gonna call out right now is the Storm synergy. They're like playing Negasonic. Sometimes she was played a lot on turn 4, and in the last few days, I was playing around with like an Echo Lizard. Lizard is a very good card with Negasonic because Negasonic almost guarantees Lizard is always a 2/6. At that point, so like if you can do some Prio Scam, you got to think about what context is Negasonic better than Jug, and it's in lockdown context. If you can shut down a lane with Storm, or if you can Prof X a lane, usually in those kinds of games, um, Negasonic becomes a lot better. Although I'm pretty sure Move is going to run rampant, so I'm not sure how much you can play. But if we're looking at like the Mercury, Fenris, Cannonball game plan, that would shut down Move anyway, right? So maybe that deck transitions to a lockdown direction with Storm to lock down a lane with Mercury, and then Fenris to swing the other ones. But if you're listening and you want to build that, go ahead. I think that's the most cringe playstyle ever. But have fun.
Yeah, another thing I think is interesting about the general direction they're taking the game. Obviously, these changes are very reversible. They'll probably just push a lot of them back. So I actually don't think this is one of the ones they'll revert. I think there's a good chance this one sticks, actually. But same thing with Enchantress. But all of these cards that used to be spammed early or played two at once late, they're starting to get put in positions where you can't play two of them on the last turn anymore. So that would be like your Juggernaut, your Cannonball getting hit a good amount was important because that was like a synergy with all these cards you want to play really early. And so this early game, we've been in where early game cards have been dominating Marvel Snap for a pretty good amount of time now. I think we're starting to see it relieved a little bit. I think we might start to see 5 drops come back, like a Ronin or a Dino. We're getting to the point now where it almost feels like one big thing could just be enough, especially if you're running like the turn 6 tech goes with, I don't know, a 2 drop, as opposed to 5 tech cards on the last turn, or like Negasonic or Cosmo on turn 3 with priority. Now that these things aren't here anymore, I can definitely see a universe where we start seeing these big guys come back played on turn 5.
Yeah, I definitely think that 5 drops could see a resurgence. If you're looking for the 5 drops that I think will see the most impact, I think you're looking at stuff that like really wants to be played on 5 and is such a big tempo shift. Stuff like an Infinity Ultron, stuff like a Ronin. All of those cards are all of a sudden like very good when this like universal universally applicable tech like goes away. Those cards are like stuff that's really good. Dino is another one that's great. I mean, less Shang, less Enchantress, all that happening is good for all these cards because less of that means less tech slop, which means that your 5 drop will be able to stay on the field easier. Anything else about Negasonic, or are we ready to get to the next one?
I think that's good.
All
The only
right.
other thing I can think about with Negasonic is a lot of the time you play around 5 even just to like if the opponent has 3 cards in a lane and you're playing Negasonic on 5 and they can't win they usually can't win that lane if you're up. And so having the extra points there played on 5, I almost feel like we're going to see more commitment to 1 drops cuz like so many of these cards are really good on turns with 1 extra energy. And so now, like if this was a 5/8, that's incredible. Imagine if Negasonic was a 5/8. Like, that's crazy. But, like, even Enchantress on the last turn, this on turn 5, Cosmo on turn 5, I guess. Like, I could see a lot of situations where you'd want to fill your curve with a 1-drop.
Yeah, too bad they all suck. I mean,
You got Bob.
I mean, the good thing is like you don't need to play 1-drops to get 1-drops. Kate Bishop and Merlin, great
There
cards.
you go.
Mirage, great card. So I
Yeah.
would just run those if I'm looking for a 1-drop.
Yeah, those count.
Alrighty. Now we're about to start getting to the butcher block where they just took the knife to the card and went hiya and slashed it. Eliath is now a 6/6. They just took 3 points off the top of this card, no changing the cost. Is this version of Eliath a dead card? We'll start with Xenaid because I know we play some Eliath.
Like I was playing Eliath, but like it was only viable if you could like cheat him out. Like the reason I was playing Eliath was because I could get Scar to 0 energy, and now I'm not like it's gonna do the same exact thing. I feel, and I never really needed its 9 power. I think this more affects Wiccan decks because Wiccan decks were both using him as a source of power. Like yeah, I think him being a 6/6 is more impactful because most decks that played him wanted to play him before turn 6. And blocking something with a 6/9 Alliance on turn 5, that feels pretty fucking disgusting. So this is a pretty nice nerf to Alliance, but I don't know if he needed it. I may feel like Wiccan was probably like the card that enabled it to do stupid shit. And I know people were like calling for Wiccan nerfs, but I don't know. What do you feel, Denish?
Yeah, this changes the equivalent of when they took Hela from 6/9 to 6/6. And I think that that is a really big deal, especially since he needs to be the effect that's winning his game. He has the same issue with Hela, where you pretty much need to win the Hela lane, and if you don't, you need to discard a stupid amount of power. Except Alioth doesn't really have an option to discard a ridiculous amount of power, and so it is really, really important that you win his lane, and that 3 points makes it a lot harder. And so I think he is playable, but I'm not convinced he's going to see play, with the exception, of course, of if you have a 0/12, because then, yeah, he'll be fine.
Yeah, I think that this card's points matter a lot. Old Eliath's points didn't matter because it was like winning the lane. You could make that card a 6/1 if it, and it's good when you destroyed all the enemy unrevealed cards. This iteration of Goliath cares a lot about points. I'll just walk back a little bit because this iteration of Goliath has been changed a lot. It started as a 6/8. It saw like no play. It went to a 6/10. It saw too much play. It went to a 6/9, and it's been healthy ever since. Taking it down to a 6/6 feels like a complete butchering of the card. Not even like a design space. These last 3 changes, I don't really get. They don't even feel like they're experimenting with design space in a new way, as a lot of the other changes did. These 3 just feel like, oh, we gotta fill out the rest of the tech is gone OTA. Let's just kill 3 tech cards and say we're on with it. Anything else you want to touch on about Eliath?
Yeah, this is the only change out of all of them, and I mean literally all of them, where I don't think they thought people were going to try to play this. Like, with the rest of them, I can see what they were getting at, even with some of the ones that you're going to hate on. I can see where they're coming from, and I think that they will actually still see play. It's this and the Shadow King one I'm not convinced about, but that'll be up next. But yeah, I think this change, I don't see what they were going for here. With the rest of them, it's like, okay, fine, I get it. I know what you're doing. I think this was more of the joke, like, oh wait, it's a tech card, we gotta nerf it, guys. And also, to a lot of people complain about Eliath. I think that this update was the devs saying once again, all right, guys, we'll make all the changes you want for a week. We'll just see what happens, and then they're just gonna revert this. There's no way this sticks.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Wiccan players were having a little too much fun with this card. But aside from that, I think we're pretty good on Reliance. They'll probably go back to having higher power.
Alrighty. Speaking of Shadow King, 3/3. I
Wow.
am not a fan. This card is very important in this metagame, I think. There's a lot of like small buff cards. There's a lot of cards like we're seeing a surge of Silver Surfer first steps into Gwenpool. That is a lot of buffs. Shadow King is the card that removes those buffs because a lot of the buffs in those cards typically will stay below the Shang threshold. Think like a Mr. Sinister getting buffed 3 times. That's a 216. How you gonna revert it? Shadow King. I don't really get it. This feels like, oh, it's a tech card. We have to nerf it. La 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 la. Shadow King was fine in the 2-2. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I think Shadow King was fine at a tube too, but I'm also kind of down for him to be a 3 cost. I 3/3 is not it. It would have to be 3/4 or 3/5. But like I can see this going in a Surfer deck, and I can see this going in a Ramp deck. And so this is a card, unlike Eliath, where I can actually see places where this could realistically go, and I get what they're going for. Like they don't want Shadow King to be as sprinkleable into like everything. They more so just want it to they're giving it more of a niche almost, where I think going from a 2/2 to a 3/5 would be fine, and I think 3/5 Shadow King would be fine, and I also would be so down for if at the end of this little experiment they're running, they say, yeah, we liked Shadow King at 3 cost, we're just gonna buff his power. Like I'm fine with that. That is completely fine by me. That makes it so that the tech decks need to start running ramp, like the decks that exclusively focus on tech, because like yeah, this is the 3 drop that you want to play with your 4 drop. Like Shadow King's great.
Yeah, I don't. You guys are like Snap Youngblood, but like, I don't know if you guys remember, Shadow King started off as a 3 drop, and
No, he did not. He
he was a
started off
three.
as a 4 drop.
He started off so shit. He
He
started as a
started
Yeah.
off
four,
as a
went to a
4-3.
three,
So who's the young
went
blood
to
now,
a
Xenaid?
two.
Who's
So
the young blood now?
well, I was playing like back in the day. Like this is before I quit Snap for the first time, and every patch was like, "What's gonna make this card good? What's gonna make this card? What's gonna make this card good?" The first home I ever found for it was in like Sauron, Shadow King, Moon Girl shit, and like it took so long to get this card into a playable state. So Second Dinner is just undoing like months and months of hard work from the community because I don't think like anyone was complaining about 2/2 Shadow King. And like people are like 2/2 Shadow King's too weak even because he's too power. Like sometimes you're reverting a brood and then not even winning the lane anyway, right? You have to commit something else. So like this card, oh boy, when Denish says like Eliath is the only unplayable one, this card was so giga unplayable. They had to go 3/3 to 3/2/3, and then it went to 2/2. Like, oh man, this card was not playable as a 3 drop, and I don't think it will be.
All right, I got a few things to say. First, Zen, when did you start Snap?
I started on Miles Morales season. I started like when it started. I played the
Oh,
game before
wow.
Shadow King came out.
Yeah, you did start before me. I'm surprised you didn't remember 4 cost Shadow King because that's a hilarious card. 4-3 Shadow King. But I agree with Xenaid. I think this card is unplayable. I don't think this card can cost 3. It has taken it took a year for Second Hitter to get Shadow King in a playable state. And the thing that it needed was it needed to be a 2 cost tech card. Its effect was not universally powerful enough, and in the matchups that it was in, it was not powerful enough to warrant a 3 cost. I am confident that this one will get straight up reverted back to 2-2. I was a fan of Shadow King 2-3 a bit ago, just because I think the new baseline for 2 costs is 2-4 as well. So I think that you can justify Shadow King being a 2-3 if your meta has a ton of buffs, but they went through the avenue of nerfing the buff cards like Fantastic First Steps and Surge and Gwenpool instead of buffing their release valve, which I do support. Any other thoughts on Shadow King, or are we good to take it to the final balance change?
Can we just get a moment of silence? Rest in peace, Shadow.
Yeah, we can have a moment of silence for Shadow King. All right, on to the next tech card. Red Guardian. This looks weird. 3-0. Xenaid said he'll still play this card. Xenaid, floor is to you. Explain to us how you are still going to play this card.
This card, like, I don't know if you realize, but it's 3-0 win the game. Like, in certain matchups, okay, like, this card is only playable in Merlin decks, which is good because Merlin's, like, one of the best cards in the game. And when, like, him going from a 3-3 to a 3-2 limited him to Merlin decks because you could evolve him or you could polymorph him. His effect is still insanely good. And I think that, like, when people decide to not play around him anymore is when they'll like hate it the most. You just need the right home for him. And I think the Merlin decks, the Cersei decks, those are like the two homes that this Red Guardian can find himself in. Like if Ravonna needs a tech card, hello Red Guardian, like it's a 2 cost now. So I think its effect is just so good. It shuts down EOT, it shuts down Iron Mans, which are starting to see an uptake. If Wong starts showing up, like he'll still be viable, and he costs 3 in order to do all that, right? So like with the relative value of like the tech cards being worse, like all the other tech cards cost way too much. He's the only one that's left that's gonna do the good work, you know. Like, and when you misery him now, you don't even lose anything. So, you know, like whatever. Like I'm gonna play this card a little bit more, and I think that's the unsaid thing about all these tech cards getting nerfed. People will stop playing around them as much until the meta gets defined. So if you can find an appropriate home, because I think now this rewards deck building, creative deck building a lot, where you can turn the low stats into an upside. So like for our examples of ramping into tech, ramping into Eng, evolving the Red Guardian, stuff like that. I think the cube equity is gonna go way up.
I do think the cube equity going up is a really big deal. I think that 3-0 is too far. I think that said, he'll probably be fine, especially in these Merlin decks. Because if you think about it, what's Rogue's stat line? This is where Rogue has been for like years. Like, what are we doing? Obviously, Rogue, you get a little bit of the power off of the stealing, whereas with Red Guardian, you just turn it off. But Red Guardian also has a bigger umbrella of what it's actually hitting. And yeah, I do think it has the Legion effect of some games you just win instantly. And it's like the opponent can't know what's happening. And so 3-0 -2, completely uncalled for, funny, very funny, but also like still playable. Like even if they made him a 3-1, I think that is a reasonable balance change. Whereas this, it's a little bit much, but he'll probably be fine.
I think Xenaid is dead on. I think this is like the only tech card that didn't see its role significantly changed or its effect completely butchered in the OTA. But I do think they this is a very funny change. 3-0 just looks hilarious on a tech card, I think. I wasn't the biggest fan of the original nerf to 3-2. I'm definitely not a fan of this balance wise. I think he'll still see play though by virtue of being the last one left that still fulfills his role. Um, I'd honestly still like to see this card back to 3-3. I think it was keeping down some very important things, and it was the good kind of splashable tech card where it's a splashable tech card that you could run in a lot of decks, but it's also like you want to play it early, all that stuff.
Yeah, I want to know what you think Rogue's stat line should be, Smez. What do you think?
I think Rogue should be a 3-3 or a 3-4.
Damn, so we're just hating on Rogue now. We're making Red Guardian a 3-5, but Rogue can only be a 3-4.
I think that's
Okay, I
fair.
see
I
you.
think Rogue should be one less point than Red Guardian because she also gets the effect.
I
Yeah, but she
I think
only gets
Rogue is
ongoing.
way worse
Yes,
than
but
Red
she also
Guardian.
gets an
That's
ongoing effect, so
yeah,
it's
but the
still like
ongoings.
good. I don't
Okay,
think.
you have
I think
Sam
Rogue's tech
Wilson.
spot. I think Rogue as a whole should be 1 point less than RG.
I think
Why?
Red Guardian is so much better than Rogue. It's not even a competition. Like 3-2 Red Guardian versus 3-2 Rogue.
I mean, I'm still running 3-2 Red Guardian, but I think like
So why would Rogue be a point less?
because I think that Rogue is a card that I'd want to see less than Red Guardian.
But are you
I
running
don't
Rogue? Like
think
who is
I
running
think Red
Rogue
Guardian
other
is
than
a healthy
Mobius?
tech card. I'm not sure if Rogue is a healthy tech card.
Like Negative is the only people running Rogue just to steal other Mobius. Like I don't think
I'm sorry. Hold on. How is Rogue not a healthy tech card? It's just Enchantress, but you only get one of them.
Yeah, but it's like it's not like guaranteed. Like it's always like
Is
random and stuff like that. It's I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of Rogue in general. Maybe I've lost too many 8 cubers
Yeah, he
in
just lost an
Xenaid.
Incuba to me. That's why he's a little upsetty about the
yeah,
Rogue
he's. I think
Yeah,
as a
you little
Tribunal player.
negative cringe player over here, roguing the base Tribunal player. Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
it's because I like Tribunal.
but Red Guardian's like miles better than Rogue. He is so much better than Rogue. Like,
also 3/5 Rogue can't play it in negative. How about that, Smlz? Is there a reason you don't want it?
You know what? Screw it. Do that. I don't want to see Rogue in negative decks ever again.
yes, this is just a Rogue hater, but I think RG, I think the splashable tech cards should not exist. So I do think tech cards should be below. There should be some deck building cost to playing tech cards. Like Shadow King, like the tech cards that hit both sides, right? Like Enchantress, Shadow King, etc. Those ones should be able to have more power. Red Guardian literally has no downside, so he should always be understated. I think 3/3 Red Guardian, wanting him back is ridiculous because that's 3/5 with upside, right? Like, I don't think you should have 3/5 with upside, which is like kind of ridiculous. But if they balance a little bit better, like the power of a card should mean something.
Yeah, to be clear, you don't think we should have 3/5 with upside as a tech card. I think it's probably fine as like a copycat. I'm fine with copycat being a 3/5
Yeah,
personally,
but like there's
just
always like
because it's
some
the risk.
downside, right?
Yeah,
Like even
he's
Silver
got.
Surfer First Steps, there's some downside because she could copy something bad. Like there are some bad on reveals. Like if you acid
Yeah.
arrow her and she's winning that lane, she could send herself back over. So
Hmm.
like if you can't imagine a single world where a 3/5 is bad, it probably should not be a 3/5.
The only time I can see Red Guardian being bad as a 3/5 is if you played in an empty lane. But like, come on,
Yeah, come on.
come on,
Like
come
let's be so
on.
man, people like play raw 3/3s. Like you play your
Yeah,
werewolf
also
and then it
that.
gets Mercury. Oh shit.
Yep.
Alrighty. So we've talked about every single tech card that got nerfed, but some got spared. These four are the main ones. There's probably a few other you can classify as a tech card. These are the four that I first thought of to be saved from this purging of tech cards. Mobius, which we'll get into because I think it's kind of funny. Stardust, which that variant is absolutely beautiful. I can't wait until they release that. Mercury, which thank the Lord Mercury is still in this game. I don't want to play against Move every game. And Cosmic Ghost Rider. Denish, you sound very excited to want to talk about it. I'll let you have the floor.
Absolutely. So at first I was kind of pissed about this. I was like, my whole thing is I really hate these cross the board tech cards that don't require any timing or aim. You just kind of slam it and it just instantly wins a matchup. I don't love that. But also, if they did nerf them, they would have to nerf the thing that it's blocking. Currently, Agatha is completely unacceptable power wise. That card, that deck, specifically the Hela version, I don't really know about the other versions. I don't mess with that. But I'm telling you, Hela is not okay right now. It's only okay because it's blocked by Stardust. Negative is completely socially unacceptable, other than the fact that Mobius is there. I think with Mobius there, it's completely fine, but without Mobius, it's silly. And so if they were to cut these cards, even the Loot Cage to an extent with Afflict, but like not so much. And also, I don't think they consider that as a tech card. But they even touched it a little with Killmonger, but Zoo's fine. We're not scared of Zoo. But yeah, Mobius and Stardust specifically, even Mercury to an extent with Mauve. Even though I'm okay with Mercury as a tech card, I'd kind of prefer it didn't have its movement option, which actually would have been a good thing to include in the experiment, I guess. But like, I'm fine with them not changing these cards, just because I know if they did, the Pandora's box that would open is also completely unacceptable. Yeah, we cannot have uncounterable Hela in its current form with the extra Agatha draw and the redshift, and we cannot have uncounterable negative. And with Cosmic Ghost Rider, I mean, he's just already shit enough. They don't need to nerf him. I think that card kind of sucks. Hot take.
Yeah, no, I was surprised with the CGR hype, and you guys thought it was just because I was a Sauron player, but like looking at it realistically, that guy doesn't hit very many things. Like, and it's so easy to play around, right? Like, and he's a 5'7". Like even Ench's right now is bigger, but I think the other three tech cards are mandatory to exist in some degree. I just wish they weren't again like above rate because I think 4-7 no downside is pretty above rate, and like 3-4 Mobius whatever. Like very few decks are playing bigger than 3-4 on turn three, um, without any downside. So I guess you can say that. I mean, he's a necessary evil. Mercury, God forbid, I play against Move every day on fucking ladder, man. Like, thank God the Mercury players. Like, I just hate these. Like, why are these cards ongoing? Like, I can't play any of them, you know? And Cosmic Ghost Rider is a little too expensive because I have to play Red Skull in that slot. So, like, I
Yeah.
wish they made, like, more meaningful, like, what's it called? More meaningful on reveal tech cards that, like, because like the on reveal tech compared to the ongoing tech is so underpowered. Like Cosmo was 3-3 for so long. All these ones are broken. All the nerfed ones are on reveal, right? Most of them are at least. So yeah, they just hate on reveals for some reason.
Yeah, I want to touch a little bit on Cosmic Ghost Rider. I actually don't think the issue is he doesn't hit anything. I think the main issue is that he's 5'7". I can see Smlz was about to talk on it. I'll touch on it as well. I think if Cosmic Ghost Rider was 5'8", I'd love that. I also liked the idea he had where it just goes to 4-6. If they make Cosmic Ghost Rider 4-6, that's also lit. Like I'm fine with that. But yeah, necessary evil for sure with Mobius. Once again, I don't like Mobius. I think they should remove him, but this isn't the OTA to do that because they're not going to nerf negative with it. I think they need to nerf negative and then remove Mobius, and then nerf Hela and then remove Mobius, Stardust. And to be honest, move's probably fine, and then change Mercury to only. I think Mercury can probably Mercury's separate.
Move is not
But
fine. Move is not fine.
Move is not.
no. I'm
fine.
saying that Mercury, yeah, move is fine if Mercury didn't move. That's
No.
what I
No,
mean.
no,
Like,
no.
you don't need-
Mercury needs
No,
to move.
you haven't seen
Mercury
the move.
needs to move right
Move
now.
is ridiculous.
Put it in
Move
the
needs
middle.
Move needs a Sparky to turn into a Silver Surfer card. Then you can maybe nerf Mercury. Move is ridiculous.
Sparky is
right now.
stupid. Sparky is so
It's
stupid.
so dumb.
To be fair, yeah, Torch is a 322 on curve if you go Aranya, Sparky, Torch. That is a little goofy. But also, like, if you put it in the middle, you can't realistically use Aranya at all.
Yeah, then
So
you
it's
gotta
like-
make it like a 2-3 though.
Fine. Make it a
Alright.
2-3. I don't care.
Sure.
That's
do
fine.
that. All right. I want to touch on Cosmic Ghost Rider specifically because I was playing him in Hela up until the Enchantress nerf. I think that Cosmic Ghost Rider as a card in his text box is completely fine. The niche he was filling was Ramp's tech card. Enchantress straight up fills it better. He's been completely outclassed. So, if you're going to want to keep Enchantress in this slot of this like big tech card, I think Cosmic Ghost Rider needs to go to a 4-6. I think they need to swap roles. That is my preferred option. Where you make Cosmic Ghost Rider the splashable tech card, and you make Enchantress the big tech card, and I think it fits her better anyways because you're looking to hit the one big lane. However, if you want to revert Enchantress, which I think probably will happen, back to a 4-6, I want to see Cosmic Ghost Rider go to a 5-8. Because I think 5-8 is the point where the tech card doesn't feel like actively amazing, where it's still hitting a lot. Because I think Cosmic Ghost Rider is more universally applicable than Enchantress, and that Enchantress is only good in a few matchups. But I also think that Cosmic Ghost Rider is just straight up good at 5'8", like Enchantress is straight up good at 5'9". I think it's about a point worse at that 5 cost slot. So if you're going to revert Enchantress, I think Cosmic Ghost Rider needs to appropriately fill those roles of 5'8". If you're going to keep Enchantress at that 5 line, you need to make Cosmic Ghost Rider cost 4, because if you have both cards in the same space Whichever one has more points is going to be the one that's played, and the other one will just never be played.
And you know what? Let's make Cosmic Ghost Rider pool 1 as well. And then make Enchantress pool 5. What's wrong with that? Let the low CL gamers have some fun with Cosmic Ghost Rider.
Well, I honestly think
I,
Enchantress is completely fine at low CL at the 5 cost line. I mean, that's just like a straight up like counter to Devil Dino now. Like, it's just gonna solo that lane. You don't even need to give it any more support now after you do that. I think
yeah,
Enchantress is honestly the change that I'd most like to see stay. Make like an Enchantress 5/9 and keep it that way. I think that'd be pretty cool. Any other things you want to touch on about cards that I didn't put here, like Luke, or anything else you want to touch on these four specifically?
real quick, I do agree with you on Enchantress at low CL. I'll touch on it a little bit. I know people might not really care, but I was talking to Stefan about it, and he said he actually thinks Enchantress is significantly worse at low CL. And I mean, that's true, but what I was always trying to say, or what I've been trying to say, sure, it's worse at doing what it was doing. It's worse at being Enchantress, but it's also like playing it in a dino lane, you're swinging the lane so much more. Going from 6 points to 8 points is incredible. It's the reason why Cosmic Ghost Rider and Blink at 5/7. Well, not Blink because Blink is cheating a crap ton of power, but it's the reason why 7 power has always been like the line for 5 costs, where you need to be like Legion level to be good at 5/7. Whereas like 5/8, it's just always been, I don't know. I don't know what causes it. It's probably some math thing with the way that 3
Gladiator.
costs and 4 costs. Yeah, Gladiator is a good example. Where if Gladiator was a 3/7, that would be awful. That would be really bad. It's not the only reason, but yeah, the Gladiator. What Xenaid's trying to say is dying to Gladiator is the big deal. It is a big deal, but I don't think it's the main thing. It just seems like somehow by the end of games, you tend to be within 1 point when you're at 5/7, and then you're just up a point when you're at 5/8. And I don't know what the exact math is that causes that. It probably has something to do with the curve of 2s and 3s, but I've never labbed that out to know if it specifically.
I think simply put, it's just like your relative power in terms of like other cards. Like if you think 3+3, right? Or 3+4, like usually 2 cards is around that range, like the average Marvel Snap card. So like 7 is matching, 8 is higher. Like if you think about all the early game cards, it's 3 or 4, right? So when you just sum that
Yeah.
up, that equals like 7, and 8 outpowers that in a lane usually. If you look at the board state after turn 4, right? That's why Glad is so good at 8. So I think similar math just for the number of early game cards people run.
Alrighty. Now, what's the new meta gonna be? I think the most pressing thing is Living Tribunal. Living Tribunal has, since its inception in Snap, basically, has been the ultimate glass cannon deck. It will go taller than anything. It is susceptible to the most tech in the game. It basically is interactable by every single tech card except Shadow King. Hella, Enchantress in there, less Shang, still Stardust there, but Hella could be good. Wong, less RG, less Cosmo, less Shadow King, less Shang. That's an underrated one. It's just going to be the same as before, and Move is going to reign supreme again. Is Sauron going to come back and be a meta force? Denish, I'll let you start. I know you want to touch on Hella a bit. And what do you think is going to be the prevailing force in this 2 week metagame?
Yeah, I do want to touch on Hella a little, especially before you start your Tribunal ramble, the long version. But I don't think it's Hella. So the reason I don't think it's Hella's really, really good at beating tech cards. And this is awkward. And also, the tech card that beats her didn't get changed. And so it's like, sure, you have a ridiculous amount of points, but you didn't lose your counterplay. You're more likely to face Fenris. You aren't actually bigger than the combo decks like the Move, the Tribunal, the Wong, and you don't have good ways to beat them other than Enchantress, which Enchantress is a big deal, don't get me wrong. I think 5/8 Enchantress is really, really good for Hella, but like I think that Hella is going to do worse now than it did 2 days ago before the OTA. I think Hella was in a really good place before the OTA, and now I don't know. It's not gonna do great. I don't think, especially with like Sauron, Wong, Move, Tribunal. These are all matchups I don't want to have to play, and I love it when I'm playing against Tech Slot or anything like even like end of turn nonsense. I'm down. But once I start having to play BP Zola, that's when I have to start teching in a Shang or like relying more heavily on Gambit. And once I start having to take those riskier options or making those deck building costs other than like even with Enchantress, that's a deck building cost. I'm missing out on an Iron Man and an Agatha for that. You're saying Agatha might fit anyways, but I don't think it. I don't know. I'd prefer the Grandmaster version, especially with all the Stardust, which I think there will be a lot of Stardust. But yeah, no, I don't think it's Hella. I'll let you go on a Tribunal, or if Zen wants to touch on Sauron.
I think Sauron will find a middling place in the metagame. Like, I was relying on Red Guardian and Shadow King to do really well. I think Scar Sauron is definitely back on the plate. Because the problem with Scar Sauron is all these shitters just run fucking random ass Shang-Chi. And like this metagame, and I'm just like, every time I get hit by Shang-Chi, I'm like, what other player is losing to this? Like, I'm the only player losing to Shang-Chi in this metagame. But for Hella, honestly, I consider Sauron weak into Hella only because of the Gambit card. Like that Gambit card fucking sucks to play against, especially in the GM version
Yeah.
where you get double gambited. I was thinking maybe you run Wong in Hella and you find some stupid shit to do that way. But like, I think
Mhm.
Soren's good in a middling metagame, and it feels like we're about to go into a very high roll, just get your shit knocked in metagame.
You
Yeah, and to
mentioned
touch on
Wong and Hella. Is IU Hella back on the menu?
no, no, no. Wong, you wouldn't want IU. You just want to run Wong. And the idea behind it is if you play Hela, well, obviously you got multiple gambits and all that nonsense. But the synergy between Wong and Hela is if you discard cards and then you play Hela on Wong, then you revive all the discard cards and then you revive everything the discard cards revived. I think you'd want it to be more consistent than an IU, especially because of Stardust. It's just uh, I I don't think Hela can do anything right now other than protect itself. I think you need to play a very defensive shell of Hela. I don't think you can be aggressive with stats. I think there's going to be a lot of Stardust. That's my prediction.
And I think that's the
And
problem with Sauron as well. You need to have some defenses because you're not the biggest thing. You're playing like a little bit above vanilla stats, and you're just trying to place them in the right spots. But if your opponent's tribunaling your ass, if they're like triple deaconing with Bastion, like triple B hand, like what are you gonna do, man? Like you're playing a 514, they're playing like a 120, like a 114 demon, like it just feels like there's nothing to keep the metagame fair right now.
yeah, and I also want to touch on the you mentioned the Hela Sauron matchup. I would love to do a matchup episode in the future where we talk about matchups like this. But for now, I'll touch on the Sauron Hela a little bit. I actually do think Hela's slightly favored into Sauron. I was thinking of Surtur. I think we're more likely to generally see Surtur than we are to see Sauron. And I mean, you might be running Surtur, but I'm talking about like normie Surtur,
Yeah,
where
like
you're just
True
playing
Surtur is better than
literally,
Sauron Surtur.
yeah, literally only tens. Like that's what I'm scared of. Because yeah, Gambit is yeah, I can Gambit a 10. It's a 313 with a discard. That's really good. But also they've got six more, and it's like the Shang thing where Gambit is just Shang now, except sometimes he misses, and he costs one less and has one more power, and he discards a card. But also like it's you're only going to remove so much power. Hela has never felt good in Deserter, especially with Cosmo.
All right. If you're asking what I think the best deck is, I think it's Move. I think it has been Move, but Move is lame, so I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to talk about Tribunal instead because that's what I like and that's what I play. I have been playing Tribunal this week, unironically, before the OTA. Hella Enjoyer started a new like group of Tribunal players. I played a little. I was like the only person within top ladder like playing Tribunal at all when he was gone. I played it a little bit when Prodigy and Esme came out. I played it quite a bit that season. Now, with a lot of Tribunal cooks back on the menu, a Wiccan Ancient One Tribunal list was posted. I played it, and it was the best Tribunal had felt ever for me. It was so consistent. It was like reliably climbing. It still had those small swings you'll see where like you go up 50, you go down 40, you go up 20, you go down 10 that you'll always see with Tribunal, but it was extremely consistent.
I think the best tribunals
Tribunals
ever felt.
counters. Hold up. You can go in Xenaid.
I think the best tribunals ever felt was when Denish and I were playing Astral Tribunal. That shit was so good. With
That deck was awesome.
with no magic, with no anything, with Cobra. Ooh, I think the Sauron deck has room to run Alioth, so I'm curious to explore where in that deck I can slot in Alioth because it is necessary for some matchups like this Tribunal one. But I'm not excited for this metagame. Like it feels like when tech cards are necessary but your deck can't run them. I think that's the worst feeling because your deck just isn't good enough in that position, right? Like when you need a tech card but you're putting in make your deck worse. And I feel like the decks that just run away without running tech cards, or the decks that like the tech cards fit most naturally in, like when Tech is meta, etc. It feels hard to compete with. So like the Stardust deck, the EOT deck, like who's like that card didn't get touched, right? The deck didn't get touched a single card, and like Killmonger getting nerfed makes that deck better. And then like Vickhand didn't get touched at all. They can't run Shadow King, but like they're gonna run Rampant too, right? So who is stopping high roll shit from happening? Is it negative? Are we all negative gamers now?
All right. Back to Tribunal. Tribunal goes over the top of every single deck in the game. Tribunal can get easily like 30, 40 points in every lane, this Ancient One version. If you can get like Iron Man, Tal Mandala in a lane, if you have the Ancient One and Wiccan in that lane, Iron Man, Tal Mandala, that is all of a sudden an 88-point lane. If you put a Tribunal in that lane, it becomes what? 160. Yeah? That's ridiculous. This card, get ready to see it on ladder in droves for the first time in Marvel Snap history. I think that Tribunal is going to be the center of the metagame. Stuff is going to try to beat it. The question is going to be, are you taller than Tribunal? No? Can you tech for Tribunal? I think that Tribunal is going to be dominant until this weekend when there will be one centralized net deck. It'll get posted everywhere on every single YouTube channel because there's going to have to be some tech for this in this metagame. My hunch, ramp with Enchantress. I think Enchantress is going to retain in this metagame, and that's going to be the Tribunal counter because I think people will start running like Luna Snow Enchantress. Maybe like Fudge will figure it out. I don't know. I think that Tribunal is going to be the centerpiece of this metagame, and I think a lot of this first week is going to be, are you playing Tribunal or can you beat Tribunal? I also think this sneaky thing, I think Super Scroll going to be very, very good when it comes to cube equity. I think you're going to see a lot of Mobius, not Mobius negative, because I don't think you're going to see a lot of Mobius. I think you're going to see a lot of Stardust, though. So I think you want to maybe be Super Scroll if you have that flex slot slotted in extra cubes. I got 8 cubed by a Super Scroll in V hand the other day. I was not happy about that. But yeah, I think Tribunal is the center of this metagame. And honestly, I might be a little bit of a onlooker for this metagame. I think I'm going to be pretty busy this week, but I am very, very, very excited to see where this turns out. I think this is one of the coolest experiments Second Winner has done, and I'm really excited to see the results.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to touch a little bit on the tribunal thing, Hella Enjoyer did set up the group with the tribunal people. And that's where I've kind of landed for my, it's almost like a diary. That's where I'm planning on just also rambling. He gave me a little side category. And the server is currently invite only, but like I'll invite anyone who asks. My Discord DMs are always open. If you message me, I'll respond pretty quickly. with questions or whatever. If you want an invite to the server to watch the Tribunal players build Tribunal decks or to read my ramblings, then I mean, reach out over Discord and I'll send it to you. That's for anyone who wants it. It's a pretty good group, to be honest. It's been interesting watching it's a very different deck building process between building a Tribunal deck where you have to deal with every tech card in the game and building a Hella deck where you have to deal with one tech card and then like every combo deck in the game. It's almost the exact opposite issue, which I think is very, very interesting. But yeah, for sure, make sure to reach out. I don't know if Zen has anything else to say about Sauron or if we could start to wrap.
I think we're chilling.
All right.
All right.
So before we wrap, one last thing. These are our plans. This imbalance patch. This is the Wiccan Ancient One Tribunal I'm talking about next to my name. It has got, for our audio listeners, Quicksilver, Domino, Magic, Ancient One, Luna Snow, though that slot is flex and can also be Esme Cuckoo. I am trying out a lot of cards in that slot. Jubilee, Miss Marvel, which is your secondary win con, Wiccan, Misery, to mainly repeat the Jubilee and the Wiccan, Iron Man, Onslaught, and Living Tribunal. I think this deck is extremely well positioned. It is very consistent for a Tribunal deck. Might want to fit in a Super Scroll in there if Tribunal runs rampant. On to Denish.
Yeah, these are the decks that we're planning on running. I obviously have pinholed myself into Hella because, I mean, gambling and also, like, I don't know, it's probably an illness at this point. But my plan for the audio listeners, once again, the deck I'm running is the one I brought to Golden Gauntlet. It's running Blade, Grandmaster, Gambit, Corvus. So that's the basic structure, except instead of Odin, I'm running Grandmaster, which lets me reproc things later in the game for cheaper. It's running Jubilee, Ghost Rider, Legion, Blink, which is all pretty normal Hella stuff from the decks I run. It's running Enchantress Hella, which Enchantress because I want to be able to turn off Stardusts on turn 5 and then Hella on 6, or Hella on 5 and then Enchantress Grandmaster the Hella on 6, or Grandmaster the Blink, or do some shenanigans like that. Enchantress being a 5 cost lets me guaranteed blink it, and it can dodge Legion, which is actually really, really cool. And I'm very, very, very excited for that interaction. And then for my top end, I'm running Hulkling and Giganto. So one more time, that's Blade, Grandmaster, Gambit, Corvus, Jubilee, Ghost Rider, Legion, Blink, Enchantress Hella, Hulkling, Giganto. And the reason there's no Infinite is because I want to be able to play all my 6-drops. So if I queue into like any Stardust, which I think there will be a lot of, I don't have to worry about having a dead Infinite in my hand that I can't get onto the board because I discarded my Enchantress. I'm still able to put up numbers. Hulkling is going to cheat games because sometimes it just hits Gore, sometimes it just hits like Khonshu. Hulkling's got a lot of hits. It almost makes up for the lack of a red shift. And then Giganto over Infinite because I want to be able to play the card. Zen, you want to touch on your Sauron with Scar?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very old list. IP slot used to be Mr. Fantastic, and the Silver Surfer slot was like Surtur or Glad. Those have kind of changed things over time. It's not very tried and true tested. There's currently a few flex slots, but the goal is to slam down huge tens as much as possible. We're going to play Zabu, Sauron, Zero Surge, IP, Silver Surfer, First Step, Starbrand, Ares, Cole, Typhoid, Red Skull, and Scar. With the downfall of Cerebro, I believe cutting Red Skull it's close to time to cut Red Skull again. And I hope that this deck gets its time to shine because I would love for Scar to be playable again.
All right, and that is going to about do it for us. It was a bit of a longer episode today, but I think this is one of the episodes I choose to be longer. This was a complete bombshell of an OTA. None of us expected the massacre of tech cards. You can find Denish at twitch.tv/Denish_Hella. You can find Xenaid at twitch.tv/XenaidTFT. You can find me at very, very sparingly at twitch.tv/Smlz. And you can find me at youtube.com/@SnapAcademyYT. Thank you all for watching. Have a great one.